Well, folks, here again for the weekly forecast. During this last week, of course, we finally seen that warm-up that we had advertised last week. Some very nice conditions with temperatures moving in most locations up into the upper 40s, low 50s as we got into the late part of the week. We did have a little cool air, of course, move in during the early part of the week, and it was slow to erode as it moved toward the east. It did set off a few flurries and light snow reports across extreme southern Nebraska and the Panhandle, but overall we had no significant accumulations of anything. And of course, this cold stretch was the longest stretch that we've seen in regards to below normal temperatures since that cold break that we had during the early part of November. So as we go forward in time, what we're looking for is a slight cool down to just about normal to below normal temperatures for a couple days in the early part of this forecast, and then we start to see a warming trend as we get into next week. Late next week as the ridge starts to rebuild back in and bring that warmer air from our west into our region. So let's take a look at the upper air models and see how this week will progress. And as we go to the upper air models, the first thing I'll draw your attention to is we have a quick moving wave that is going to slide rapidly toward the east. So temperatures are likely to remain steady or slightly falling as the day progresses, and that cold air will rapidly move toward the east. We may see a little few flurry activity in northwestern Iowa and possibly into portions of northeast Iowa, but overall we're not expecting anything in the way of sensible weather. And as we go into tomorrow, you'll see that trough has rapidly moved toward the east coast, and here we have this ridge starting to build back in. So we'll see some moderating temperatures, maybe a degree or two warmer than we have today. But more importantly, as we get into Monday, we're going to have a downsloping flow component in western Nebraska that's going to allow for some compressional heating, and that'll allow us to return back up into the 40s to possibly low 50s across western Nebraska. Much cooler across eastern Nebraska and especially northeast Nebraska, where this frontal wave will start to push into our region and bring the next shot of cold air. There will be some flurry activity across the northern plains, and as we get into Tuesday, some of that will spread southward. Right now it doesn't look like any significant moisture, more or less just flurries, with the best location across the western one-third of the state as this cold air dams up against the Rocky Mountains. Now as we get into Wednesday, we'll start to see that trough lifting toward the Great Lakes, and there may be some light snow or flurries across extreme northeastern and possibly even east central Nebraska. And then as we get into Thursday, this trough starts to move toward the east, and we get this ridge pushing in with warmer temperatures moving into our region. And by Friday, once again, that ridge starts to be a dominant force, but there is another wave to the northwest that looks to start moving in as we get into the late weekend to early the following week. That may bring another Arctic air surge. So as we look at the temperature forecast, we are looking at some fairly nice conditions this weekend. We're still going to be above normal. We'll start to see some of that cool air starting to work its way in on Monday, and by Tuesday we'll get the full brunt of that cold air with some scattered flurries, particularly across the north and west, and some of that will continue into Wednesday across northeast Nebraska before we start to see temperatures moderating as we go forward in time. Now as we look at the 8 to 14 day forecast, with that ridge coming in and that cold air starting to move down, we're looking at normal to below normal temperatures across the center part of the country. And in terms of precipitation, with that cold air we're going to get that upslope flow as the cold air dams against the Rocky Mountains, and this may generate some precipitation, particularly in the western one half of Nebraska.